Welcome to Two Therapists Talking. The hope for this podcast is to talk about important issues related to couples and individuals who are struggling in their lives with many different issues. I'm David Thompson, a marriage and family therapist.
And I'm Sherie Christensen, marriage and family therapist. Please join us as we explore these issues together, and we hope you will learn and be enlightened along the way. Come find us at twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast. Hi, and welcome back to Two Therapists Talking. I'm Sherie.
And I'm David.
And we're talking about a fun concept for both of us today. And we're going to call it, David just came up with this, it's fabulous, the power of perspective. And this is a concept that we see a lot in CBT. And it's a real buzz topic, I feel like, in society in general. Just this power of positive thinking. You know, there's a lot of books around this, change your thinking, change your life. And so there's a lot of really great therapeutic concepts to this. And so we want to address that and talk about this and, you know, give you some examples in addiction and betrayal situations, but also in other circumstances. So we've got a lot of different examples and ways you can apply this. A lot of people talk about this. And so we're going to kind of jump into this concept of the power of perspective and how when you change that perspective, everything in your life changes. So give us our quote.
So I'm just looking at the Instagram account that we have, Two Therapists Talking. But today, William James is considered the father of American psychology. He has done a lot for the field. But he said, our greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. Mm-hmm. And really, that's our greatest weapon against everything.
Yeah.
Not just stress.
I mean, probably not like happiness and things like that. But yeah.
You know, this idea of the glass is half empty or the glass is half full. Mm-hmm. And your perspective will dictate your mood, your motivation, all sorts of things. And so this power of perspective is tremendous at impacting our lives.
Yeah.
And for positive or negative, likely It's already for negative and positive, but a lot of negative. And awareness of this idea and how it's showing up for us, we can turn that into more positive impact.
And obviously, you can have some areas of your life where it is, maybe you see the glass is half full, and other spaces where it's more of a negative space. But certainly, this is a major thing. And I didn't realize this, but I sort of naturally, I guess, based on, I don't know, my personality, DNA, or however I was, raised, I live in that world. I live in that glasses half full world. And it has completely changed my life. Like, I can just see the patterns of where my life has gone and the reasons it's gone that way. And it really comes down to this concept. And I guess I'm very lucky in that way, but this is a really, really big thing. It's easy for life to go in negative ways, and I'm like, okay, well, let's kind of move on and kind of go. It doesn't have to affect things. It doesn't have to affect my mood. It doesn't have to okay, well, let's figure out then a better way to do it, or a way to do it now that we have these new circumstances.
Which is awesome for Sherie, right? For those of us
it's great to me.
Congratulations. For those of us who not so much, the good news is you actually have a lot of power to think differently. Mm-hmm. And you'll find that, like any habit or pattern, you can change it. Yeah,
it takes practice.
And it's almost like the first thing is to just give yourself permission to maybe have not been very effective without beating yourself up for it.
Yes, no shame.
Maybe a lot of the stress, a lot of what's going on in your life you created, or magnified, made worse by how you thought about it. And that's what we want to talk about. So if you're naturally sunny dispositioned and kind of see the glasses half full, that's awesome.
But maybe there's a way or two here or there that you don't maybe see it that way.
Yeah.
That maybe life has happened, things have happened, and it's shifted your perspective in that way.
Yep. The good news is you have more power than you think.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. The check the facts.
Check the
that
facts.
You do, David.
I love
great.
the check the facts. And this is something that you do when you aren't feeling good. The idea is that you experience something, someone said something happened, and you need to check the facts about who you are and how your story is actually going to be. So the idea is if you're frustrated, you're feeling depressed or anxious or anything like that, you breathe, you arrive in your body as best you can, take a really deep breath or 2 or 3, and you check the facts and the facts about who you are. So for example, the facts would be that I am a child of God. My worth, my value is 100%. I am lovable as I am. It's not about what I've done or what I'm doing. It's about who I am inside. And that isn't going to change. And you find that a lot of the distress you may be feeling is because you're not being faithful to that fact. But you're feeling...
your worth is tied up in that somehow.
Right. You're feeling dependent on the situation or what somebody else thinks.
External
or an outcome.
Of, approval and worth.
Yep.
And if that sounds like the dailies, affirmations from our dailies episode, you're right. These are really tied there, and that's one of the reasons why you want to make those affirmations that daily habit, because you're getting that daily reinforcement of that, and it can be something you can come back to quickly and easily. I like the one we were talking about before we started recording, the concept of I am safe, because I think that's a really powerful one as well, and governs a lot of what causes us to stress, is that we're feeling we're not safe in any given situation. And so when David said that, I said, well, what if you're not safe? And he gave this beautiful clarification, so I'll let him tell you what that is, because it's spot on.
It's a long-term perspective. So this idea, for example, that your story ends well and you are going to be okay, that despite the current stresses, experiences, circumstances, situations that you're in, ultimately the sun will set and rise again, life will go on, and you will be okay. And I think...
And you really put it even in the extreme perspective of saying, even if you were to die tomorrow, you're still safe.
Right.
And that, I think, is what really, I was like, yes, that. Because I'm still safe even if the worst of the worst happens. I think that is where this phrase comes from, because I know a lot of listeners are probably going to go, yeah, but what if I'm not safe? Because these horrible things are happening. I might lose my job. I might, I might die from this illness.
Which is fair.
Those are big things.
And so I really believe it's this, there is no worst case scenario taken literally. And for me, the foundation comes back to this gospel concept of Jesus teaching, let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. He talked about, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And you think about what that means. How would he have the confidence to say that despite the situations that we encounter? What is it that makes us...
He did.
Yeah. Like, how is our heart not troubled? How are we not afraid?
Yeah.
How do we do that? What is he talking about? And I really think it's this long-term perspective of he has us and he's not going to lose us ever, ever. And I find great confidence in it personally that I can't mess that up.
Yes.
I can make decisions that make things hard, and then I would have consequences because of those decisions. Mm-hmm. But he remains constant. And so there is no ultimate worst case scenario for me. I mean, even if I were to die, I think would bring actually a lot of rest in a lot of ways. So that loses some of the sting for me, but no, things are going to be okay. And that's the facts. So when we say check the facts, it's being able to step back and look at your situation differently because you're up above it now. Sort of a bird's eye view. You talk about a 30,000
meta-analysis of life. And I think just to go along with that, my mom used to say, look at things from 1,000-year perspective.
1,000-year. Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Like, is this going to be as big of a thing in 1,000 years?
1,000 years.
Yep.
Yeah, wow. Well, nothing's going to be a thing.
Right. Right. But, that is kind of the idea. And for those of you who may not come from, a Christian background, look at that, from, okay, we talk about this concept of something greater than you and all of that, and that's something to consider. Where do you fit in that greater than perspective? And it's my belief that everyone needs that greater perspective, yes. And that's an important part of being able to live in a healthy space, whether that, is Jesus or whatever higher being level that you have that you can connect to. And we talked about that a little bit in that Dailies episode, but it changes how you do life. It changes how you can connect to yourself, others, your experiences, if there is that there. And so maybe that's some initial work that needs to be done if you're in a little bit different space. But I think it's critical as you're moving through some of these concepts, but just in general in life.
Yep. So check the facts. Mm-hmm. Stop, breathe, and check the facts. The facts of who you are, how your story ends, which is good. And I believe that with all my heart. If my story ends well, your story ends well. I'm not some exception to the rule.
Right.
God does not love me more than he loves you or anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this power of perspective, one of the most important things we've learned in this field in the past several decades is this realization that our thoughts govern our feelings, our moods. And so if we are not feeling good, we can trace this back to not thinking good. And again, you're not in big trouble here. This isn't some kind of quiz and you failed. This is a matter of if I'm feeling something, it had to have a start, a beginning somewhere.
Right.
And that may sound like, well, if this happens, of course I'm going to feel this way. Well, how would you feel if you wrecked your car or if you just learned of a diagnosis or if you, and that's fair. There's going to be a lot of hard things that come at us. And even in those situations, your thinking, your thoughts will still govern how that's received and what you do with it.
Yes. So, a little personal story. When I was in college, I had tried out for the touring dance team. And I was really excited about that. And I'd made it on the team. And over Christmas break, I was ice skating with my family, and we did one of those little, you're ice skating, you like hold on and you're in a row and you're just all skating, holding on to the person in front of you. And I was close to the end and we went around, curve, I go flying, my sister's in front of me, she goes flying, she lands on my leg and it breaks. And went to the, hospital. Yep, it's broken. Come in tomorrow. We'll get you all decked out with your removable casts and all that, all that stuff. And I I went home and, this is really hard. Like, I could legitimately get removed from the team because they haven't started practices yet. And how am I going to dance on a touring team with a broken leg, right? Like, it's not going to happen. And this is something I've been working for and so excited for, a number of years. And kind of the culmination of my dance career. And I was pretty upset about it. And in the car on the way to my appointment the next day, both of my parents were in the car. And I told them, I said, this is the only time you will ever hear me cry or see me sad about this. And I'm going to, this is it. This is my time to be sad, and then I'm going to change my perspective about it. So I'm allowing myself to feel the pain and the sadness around it, and then I decided to change how I thought. So it's important not to negate, important feelings, but then to be aware of how they may be then affecting your thoughts. And so I came up with a list of the top 10 reasons to have a broken leg. One of which was that I got a handicap parking pass for school, which means I got to park close to my classes, which was awesome. Another of which was I didn't have to shave that leg for several months. I can't remember all of them, but it changed things. And the outcome then in my life, I was so, this is going to benefit me in whatever ways, and this is going to end up being a good experience for me in whatever ways, that as I went forward, I ended up being made the team captain because I was there the whole time. I learned every dance from a chair. I was the one, I led everyone in our, warm-ups and all, stretching and all of that from crutches. And I think it ended up helping me because this was the backup tour team that I had just made, which you had to be on and had to do this in order to make it to the next level. I think that is what made it so that I ended up getting on the tour team. Because they saw that. They saw that I was dedicated no matter what, that I was there, that I worked hard, that I wasn't, down on myself or didn't check out, that I continued to help other people from that, perspective in that situation. And I think that is, because there's a million amazing dancers, right? And so what is the thing that ends up standing out? And I think that's what made the difference.
Wow. That's a good story. I like it. And it just, like you said, came naturally to you.
Yeah.
This wasn't an assignment from mom and dad.
Right.
Trying to help. And I imagine listening to this, you get the concept, but you're also struggling with very serious things. For example, a spouse who is unfaithful. So whatever it is you're feeling, listening to this podcast, here's an angle that I want you to consider. It's been said that the joy we feel has little to do with the circumstances of our lives and everything to do with the focus of our lives. And so often in here, and I'm sure this is the same for Sherie,
yep,
you'll have a spouse who they've been through betrayal.
Yeah.
And they are right in the middle of it or in the beginning part of it. Well, what are they going to do with that? What are they going to do with that information? How do I find, how do I maintain a perspective that is positive or beneficial in something like that? Yeah. It's almost this is like the worst thing that could happen to me.
Yeah.
In a relationship.
And I often will see in groups or in different, communities of betrayal trauma, almost this idea of, well, don't you dare tell me, of course, yeah. There's no way that this is going to be anything else.
Right.
And to that, I would just say, well, of course you're in pain. Anyone would be in pain. And it's important to validate the fact that there is pain around betrayal. And then, just like in that story, which obviously is such a tiny scale compared to this amount of pain. Allowing yourself to feel that and then shift and move forward, right? Where you move from a victim being victimized, right, into not just a survivor, but a creator of the incredible life that you want to live, regardless of the circumstances. And it doesn't mean when you're positive life isn't hard. It doesn't mean that hard things don't continue to happen based on the choices of others or the choices that you've made or whatever. For, in that situation, I didn't stop having a broken leg. I didn't stop needing to go to therapy, needing to do all these things to heal it. In fact, a month later, I actually fell down 2 flights of concrete stairs with that broken leg. And I had to take the stairs because the elevator wasn't working. And the bottom of my crutch caught the stair. And I just went down.
2 flights.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't fall the full 2 flights, but it was the 2-flight section where I fell. And hit my leg really hard. And again, so let me give you another example then. So I go in thinking I'm in a massive amount of pain on my leg, and I'm like, I probably re-broke this thing. Like, I'm in big trouble. Like, I'm not going to clear enough healing to be able to put enough weight on it to dance when we go on tour. Like, God, why is this happening to me? Why would you let this, happen? I go in, get an x-ray at the training facility. So I had, these, because I was on the team, I could use the facilities there. And they look at it and they come back and they said, it's a really good thing this happened. Like, it's a really good thing that we saw this, because they somehow had not received the x-rays from my physician over Christmas break. And they said, we didn't realize exactly where he had broken this. And if you had not, like, if we hadn't had this x-ray done, you would never have healed, because we've been having you do therapy based on where we thought it was broken. And it was broken in it was broken in a different spot than we thought. And our therapy would have kept you with that broken leg forever. Like, it would never have healed. And so, it's just this other moment where you're like, am I safe? You look at that long-term perspective.
Wow, that's interesting. I like that analogy a lot, because to the people whose partners have been betrayed, they come in and we talk about the purpose you're going to find in the pain, or as Viktor Frankl would put it, the meaning you make in your suffering. And you will come out of this process if you choose, because that's the power of perspective. It's your perspective. But you will come out of this process more loving, more understanding, more empathetic, and with a much better sense of your worth and value as independent from anything anyone around you is doing. Because what is more devastating to that sense of self than this partner that I've given my life to, that has seen me in every possible scenario, and they rejected me? In a sense, they've been unfaithful, and they've said, all of
there's
you
the meaning you've made.
Yep. All of you is just not enough.
Yeah.
And that's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And so that's the x-ray that determined that the break was in a different place. And now you can do the healing, better healing, more focused healing. And you will become a more loving person as part of this process, which is, you think about when all the dust settles, 1,000-year perspective is a big perspective. How about a 10-year perspective? You will be a very different person in 10 years, having learned who you are. And now that impact is on your children, is on your grandchildren, and
everyone else around you.
Right.
They get to see that. They get to feel that. Yeah. It makes an enormous difference. I love that piece. That has been a driving force for me in my life as I go through hard things, is that concept of being more loving and more empathetic because of what I've gone through.
Yeah. So for this episode, we are out of time. We're going to continue in the next episode right where we left off. We're glad you joined us today. Hopefully this was helpful. Please join us in the future as we continue to talk about this.
Thank you for listening to Two Therapists Talking. We look forward to sharing more conversations with you. Connect with us at twotherapisttalking.com or email podcast@twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast.